talk about Pablo Escobar, probably one of the biggest criminals in recorded history. And we're also talking about cocaine, so it's a 2-in-1 package.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Let's start with cocaine.
Do you have free samples?
Okay.
No. All
We
right,
don't
so
tell that to the school.
Colombia is one of the best spaces for cocaine growth, or the growth of the coca plants, which is used to make coca paste, which is then refined to make cocaine powder. Originally, most of the drugs being sold by Colombia were marijuana, but then they realized that
Sorry about the wiggliness of the video.
coca was superior for 2 reasons. One, because more grew, and actually 3, it gave a better high, and they could sell it for more.
All right.
Tasty.
So now, here comes Pablo Escobar. So he was born in, I'm gonna butcher this, Rio Negro in the Antigua Department of Colombia, which is this little spot right there.
That thing.
Yeah.
The red one.
Ow.
He actually was born into a middle-class working family. His father was a farmer, and his mother was a school teacher. So they weren't an extremely wealthy family, but they also weren't low class. So they weren't poor, but they weren't rich, which I guess is what middle class means. Okay. So he started by stealing people's cars and then dropping them off at smuggling points. So it was just him and a group of friends. The only problem is drugs are much easier to come by than cars, and it takes a lot less effort to conceal stolen drugs rather than
Cars.
stolen cars. Yeah, exactly. So he buys his first plane. I can't remember what it's called, but he buys his first plane and he starts creating new routes along to the U.S. from Colombia. His main stopping points were South Florida and California. Okay, so this is his first encounter, not like his
Last one.
first encounter with the
He
law.
looks so friendly.
Happy.
Yeah. So he and some of his friends were coming in from Ecuador. There was something wrong with his plane, so they were driving through Ecuador when they got pulled over, and then they found 39 pounds of cocaine. It was just the paste. Yeah, 39 pounds in Ecuador of cocaine. So they were arrested, and Escobar tries to bribe the judges to make it go away, but it doesn't work because people don't fear him, because if you want to bribe someone successfully, you need to intimidate them and have power and money. So since he's in jail, he has some of his friends, or gang at this point, cartel, kill the police officers who were the eyewitnesses. And so after the officers are killed, he goes free due to lack of evidence. And I included this slide because it's not a huge point in a huge part of his life, but it does show the beginning of the way that he does business, or the way that he deals with political officials, which is called, he had a phrase that was plata or plomo, loosely translated means silver or bullets, which means if you cannot be bought, you can be killed. And this is the philosophy or the ideology that he carried. You'd oftentimes see that the people that weren't corrupt were killed, and that's a pattern that takes place until the end of his workings as a cartel leader. So Escobar's cartel was the Medellin cartel.
Medellin? I don't know how to speak. I don't know how to pronounce Spanish.
2 L's is
Medellin?
Y. Medellin. That sounds right.
Medellin.
Yeah, that cartel. And their biggest rival was the Cali cartel. But while Escobar's alive, they're not much of a threat because he kills them at every opportunity. But a big thing with them is they basically turn the streets of Colombia, or the big cities of Colombia, into warfare. Like, they just or the streets. But Escobar made his cartel bigger. Like, he had the former leader assassinated, and then he took place in the power vacuum. At the height of his enterprises, they made $75 million a day. He would buy out houses and just fill them with money.
So,
The ultimate storage system.
Just buy everyone's houses and fill them with money.
It's interesting how it's all
Whee!
these are American dollars.
Yeah,
Except for the ones in the front.
yeah, it's assorted, but it's mostly because most of his tradings were in America.
Good job, Pablo Escobar.
Lot of
do you know how many houses he filled?
I don't. I do know that at one point they found it was getting kind of like it's more expensive to buy houses and warehouses, so he took $100 million and just buried it in the ground.
That's what you do with money. You bury it.
And then after he died in the early 2000s,
Modern day pirate.
there was a farmer who dug up that money.
Wait, question. Did he get to keep it?
Yes, he did.
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh, that is
That
every
farmer.
person's dream.
$100 million in a day.
Wow.
That's gotta be the
Back to
happiest
the farm.
day
I
of
can
his
back
life.
home.
Escobar's gotta learn to launder money.
Yeah, he was quite extravagant with his money. He was very showy.
Still, though, it'd be nice to put it in the bank.
So he was a James Bond villain.
I guess it was okay.
Except he didn't really want world domination. He just wanted to sell cocaine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was a sensible Bond villain.
You don't get a, do you get a lot of those?
So one of the biggest dealings of Escobar was the siege of the Supreme Court, and I should say alleged dealings of Escobar because they haven't tied him to it yet, but I'll explain why it's pretty obvious that it was him. So Colombia was creating an extradition treaty, which means that they deport criminals if they've committed crimes in other countries. So they were setting up a treaty with the U.S., and they were going to deport los extraditables from Colombia to the U.S., and Escobar was one of said extraditables. Sorry, horrible pronunciation.
That's not bad.
But so what happened was members of the cocaine cartel held the Supreme Court hostage and then ran in and burned all the documents. So technically, they can't say it was Escobar, but he did have a stake in it, and the men who took the Supreme Court were part of his cartel. So if 2 + 2 = 4, you know. Okay, so the Supreme Court, it's a big risk because it's one of the biggest things a cartel has done or had involvement in, because they were backing a guerrilla group, but they pretty much, that was a declaration of war to the Colombian government. And so I say public opinion, it's more like political opinion, because the politicians on the one hand are being bribed generously, but on the other hand, people are starting to, like before now, you see a thread of them pushing Escobar under the rug and like not worrying about what he was doing because they were making money. Like it's a good source of revenue for the people, but it's questionable. So, bless you. Now they start targeting him directly, and so seeking to not be killed, he ends up surrendering himself, and he negotiates for this prison, which is on its own mountain. It's not as big as a villa, but it is a large house. Yes. It was,
Did he have servants?
He didn't have servants. He also didn't have prison guards. It was an unguarded facility.
Well,
Like a great idea.
He's
of
a good
course.
negotiator.
Why wouldn't
Yeah,
it be?
and
It's basically house arrest.
Yeah, basically house arrest. They were hoping that he would stay down. However, from his house, he continued to run his cocaine operations.
So he's not even jailed, he's just relocated.
Exactly, yeah. And so the government starts getting notice of the cocaine empire continuing to grow.
Sounds like a pretty good prison to me.
So they finally just decide they're going to get rid of Escobar. So they send military to his house, special police. But Escobar had some friends on the inside, and so when they got to the house, it was deserted, and he fled into hiding.
The jungle.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, where else would you flow
Escobar.
to?
Wild cocaine man.
Okay, so like I said, there was a special police force that was set up by the new president, and in the end, Escobar was killed on December 2nd, 1993, and they have video of him being killed, and it's kind of crazy. He and one of the other people that ran the cartel with him, they have AKs, and they basically get up on the roof and are shooting down at the police, and they try to escape by rooftop, but they end up being shot by, I think, a sniper. And after his death, you see the rise of the Cali cartel, which is one of Colombia's biggest problems at the time, is they can kill a gang member, but then just another gang rises to power.
Power vacuums.
Yes, exactly.
Much less fun than they actually sound.
And
So they should just bomb themselves.
yeah, that's...
Any questions? Anyone? Questions? Anyone?
I got a question.
Yes.
How did, so there's a lot of money coming into the United States there, into Colombia because of this drug trade. How did that affect their economy? Like, did it actually boost the economy? That's one of the reasons politicians avoided it?
Yes, that's one of the reasons that politicians were kind of able to let it slide, because it was a good source of revenue for,
The people of Colombia are making all their money from the drug.
and I mean, it's better if someone in another country is overdosing on cocaine than if one of your own citizens is overdosing on cocaine.
Oh,
So then you can claim that it's America's problem, not ours.
Exactly.
It's your problem. It's your people overdosing.
So, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about that I just didn't put a slide up for, but I had Narcos on, was oftentimes big criminals or people, terrorists sometimes, like the Boston Marathon bomber, are publicized, or they have a lot of recognition to their name. It's just kind of interesting, a reflection of our society, that that's what we choose to highlight, or that's what we choose to show.
Well, who do we really remember? The people we remember farthest back are the philosophers or warlords.
Yes. Very true.
Jesus.
Nah, he's not that far back. Maybe some other people from that time. But think about it. We know, people like Socrates and Herodotus, who are important. But there's also Alexander the Great, who was.
And Confucius. Don't forget Confucius.
What about Sun Tzu?